Sky News are at it again. I guess that's not a surprise to anyone who watches my show, but they are endeavouring to, I guess, stomp all over Tony Burke, stomp all over the government, as is their thing. And this time it's all about ISIS brides. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a moment, let you know what who ISIS brides are, I guess, and to some extent what their rights are. But it is important to understand that Sherry Markson and those people at Sky News don't understand or care about anybody else's rights if they're seen as Muslim, if they're seen as associating with terrorists, as is the case with these ISIS brides, then they are clearly unhuman. And it is the goal of Sky News to dehumanise them in whichever way they can, regardless of whether they are women and children, and to some degree, particularly children, very innocent of any crime. So I'm going to show you in a moment Sherry Markson's comments about this. I'm not going to focus too much on what she says. Sky News have run a whole sequence of events, of clips around all of this. But Sherry is the one who leads the pack. She's the one who's extremely motivated about all of this, who believes that she has started this story. She is the journalist who's ahead of the game. She is the one that has instigated this story and is proud of that very fact. So I'm going to play a bit of a clip of hers, but not all that long because I don't want to bore us all too much. But here she is talking about this particular issue.
To my exclusive that Tony Burke told a private meeting attended by Home Affairs officials that he would not block the return of ISIS brides, and he wanted the whole matter kept out of the media. Explosive government documents reveal that Burke also had a private closed-door discussion with a charity organising the ISIS brides' repatriation, and he asked Home Affairs officials to leave the room for that conversation. These internal Home Affairs documents, including handwritten notes, are devastating for the Albanese government. I broke this story this afternoon on the Sky News website. Now, this handwritten note from Home Affairs Secretary Stephanie Foster also appears to record Burke saying that assistance would be provided to the ISIS brides after they returned to Australia. These extraordinary revelations directly contradict both Burke and Anthony Albanese's repeated claims that they knew nothing about the return of the ISIS brides and played no role in it. It indicates now that they misled the public when they initially dismissed media reports that ISIS brides were coming home as wrong. Now, just to recall, this is what Albanese said on the very first day he was asked about this.
What actions has your government taken to guarantee the safety of Australians if these people return?
Those reports are not accurate.
The issue is about the safety. And I guess what Sky News want us to all believe is that there is something, I don't know, how can I best describe it? Something which is nefarious about all of this, something that perhaps means that these people are terrorists, that the kids are terrorists, that the women are terrorists, whatever. But this is not necessarily true. And the right, do people have the right to be in Australia after making some terrible decisions, which no doubt they did? So I guess one can say Sky News is certainly at it again. And this time accusing Tony Burke and the government of bringing ISIS to our doorstep because a group of Australian women and their children are being brought home from camps in Syria. But here's the thing, Sky never mentions these women and kids have legal rights. No rights invented by activists, no rights created by wokeness, rights grounded in Australian law, international obligations, and basic constitutional principles. So let's straighten out the facts so that we can get some understanding of what's going on here, without the fear-mongering, but with just enough humour to keep us awake. First, the big legal point that they are Australian citizens. This alone changes everything, because under international law and Australian legal principles, a country cannot refuse entry to its own citizens. A country should not render its citizens stateless. So it doesn't matter what sort of meetings were held, what Tony Burke had done, whether he wanted the media to be included. The fact is that a country should not render its citizens stateless. It's as simple as that. This includes women who left Australia, even if for bad decisions that they've made. Children born overseas to Australian citizens. Children who have never set foot in Australia but are legally entitled to citizenship. And let's be honest, if citizenship is conditional on making good life choices, half of Parliament would be living in detention centres. I think we all could agree with that. So what are the children? What are the rights of the children? This is where Sky News goes radio silent, and there's no mention of this whatsoever from them. These children did not choose to go to Syria. These children did not join ISIS. They did not commit a crime, and are often the victims of kidnapping, coercion, or parental decisions. Australia has clear obligations under the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, which we signed decades ago. Those obligations include the right to safety, the right to health, the right to education, the right to nationality and identity. Leaving Australian kids in dangerous camps with no medical care breaches these obligations, plain and simple. It can't be more simpler put than that. In other words, bringing the children home isn't a favour, it's a legal duty. But they're ISIS brides. The media frame that hides more than it revealed. The term ISIS brides is a political slogan, not a legal category. Many of these women were teenagers when they left, were groomed or coerced, were transported by husbands or partners. They faced violence, abuse, or forced marriage, or were trapped once inside ISIS-controlled territory. But Sky News don't talk about any of that. Under international human rights frameworks, they may be victims of trafficking, victims of domestic violence, victims of sexual slavery. Sky News talk about this? No, they don't. And here's the kicker. Even if they did not commit crimes, Australia already has a system for that. It's called courts. It's called due process. We don't outsource justice to desert camps run by militias. National security agencies support bringing children home. Sky News won't tell you this, so I will. Australia's intelligence community, including ASIO, has repeatedly said leaving citizens, especially children, in these camps poses a bigger long-term security risk than bringing them back under supervision. And you might be asking yourself, well, why is that the case? Because the camps are breeding grounds for trauma, radicalisation, and exploitation. So they are better off here, because repatriation actually allows monitoring. It allows us to find ways to work with these people for the purpose of rehabilitation and de-radicalisation programs, and of course, proper risk management. Unlike Sky commentators, our intelligence agencies actually work with facts. International law and under international law, Australia has obligations. Australia signed the 1961 Statelessness Convention, meaning that we cannot leave citizens in limbo with no state protection. Australia also has obligations under, believe it or not, humanitarian law to assist citizens trapped in conflict zones. We also have an obligation to protect children, avoid complicity in inhumane treatment. You can't say we're a proud Western democracy and then act like a dictatorship when it comes to your own people. But Sky News do. So what rights do the women themselves have? Well, they have the right to return to their country. They have the right not to be abandoned in unsafe conditions. They have the right to a fair process if accused of crimes. Returning them to Australia does not absolve them of responsibility. It ensures that responsibility is handled lawfully, not through mob outrage or political theatre as we see through Skies. The real political story then is that Sky News uses these women as a political chew toy. They shout Tony Burke is soft on terrorism, while carefully ignoring the High Court's restrictions on stripping citizenship. Australia's legal obligations, our intelligence advice, the rights of children, and the fact the coalition quietly repatriated people as well, not just this government. The outrage factory runs on heat, not facts. The actual truth is the Australian government, Labor or Liberal, has little choice. Repatriation is the safe, most lawful path. And Sky's coverage is about as informative as a horoscope. So what do we learn from all of this? How can we make sense of it? These women and children are Australian citizens. They have rights, legal, constitutional and moral, to return home. Bringing them back is not weakness. It's not appeasement. It's simply what a lawful, democratic nation does. If there are crimes, charge them. If there are risks, manage them. But abandoning Australian children in a war zone isn't tough on terror. It's just morally bankrupt. Thanks, everybody. Take care.